Hello, welcome to another battle report. This is a 2,500 point match, Empire versus Orcs and Goblins. Anthony actually has already uploaded his side of this battle report to his channel, The Sustainable Center. I just wanted to do it because this PowerPoint's been sitting on my hard drive for a while now, and I like to give my thoughts and why I did the silly things I did in this battle. So I'm going to just record my narration, put it up, and let's just see what the other side of the table looked like during this match. We rolled up meeting engagement. Here you can see that Anthony deployed first. He did a solid battle line. I actually got to pick and choose my matchups, and I chose to deploy the steam tank opposite the savages, the great sword horde, and the inner circle knights opposite the things that I thought they would do better against, and the demigryphs up on the flank here. I was pretty happy about this. The only problem was that the master engineer for the Hellblaster went into reserves, and the warrior priest on a mount that usually rides with the inner circle knights went into reserves as well. So I had to spend a turn basically doing nothing, allowing those two units to either the warrior priest has enough movement to make it to the inner circle knights, but the engineer is going to take 2 turns of shuffling up. So that kind of sucks because you really only get a couple turns of shooting early on in the game. But so this is how it looks before Vanguard movements. Here's Anthony's list. You can see he's got the Horde of Savage Orcs with the Shaman, with the skull item that gives them the enhanced ward save, a bunch of Squig Hoppers and Fast Cav, his Night Goblin bunker with a bunch of heroes, the Squig Herd, more Hoppers, and then a horde of Black Orcs. Over there is the other unit of Fast Cav. And then on my side, you have the Pistoliers, the 3 Demigryphs with the Musician, the 29 Swordsmen with the BSB, the Hellblaster. I think that's 34 Great Swords. I'm trying them out in Horde formation. I think it's actually going to be a permanent fixture, but for now I'm just testing it with the Hurricanum there for support. Here's a better shot of that. And then 14 Inner Circle Knights and a Warrior Priest will join them when he comes in from reserves. And this is my first time using the Steam Tank in 8th edition. I'm very pleased with it, but you'll get to see why. So, Vanguard movement, the Pistoliers only shuffle up a bit because they can't go within 12 inches of his stuff. And then since we rolled off and I won the roll, the Wolf Riders are then able to make their Vanguard move in response to that. So they play Ring Around the Rosie around that. That 40k terrain is going to be used as impassable, so there'll be woods on one side and on impassable where there's 40k stuff. And then the Fast Cab moves up over here. I think this might be turn 1 Orcs. I forget who went first in the game. Yeah, I guess it was Orcs and Goblins going first, and they move up like so. I think he actually got Foot of Gork, for his Shaman, and for the Savage Shaman. I mean, Anthony was mostly using a Little Wog Shaman for this match, and I think it worked out a lot nicer. With the Savage Orc and with the Big Wog spells, I really feel like if you have this character, he's in a unit that wants to get into combat, and it's like everything but get him into all of his spells are direct damage, so they're useless once he's in combat. That's what I'm trying to say here. So this is what it looked like. I moved the Pistoliers up to fire at the Fast Cav. The Demigryphs and everybody sort of angle to flank. The Great Swords get the 5-up ward save in close combat. He gets some negative spell off on the Knights. That's what that red dice next to them is supposed to represent. I think it's the itchy one that reduces their movement and initiative. Not really a big deal in this combat. I think that's the Withering that I got off on the Squig Herd. That shadow spell that's up next to them with a dice on. I think they're -2 to their toughness, or maybe it's the enfeebling foe. Either way, it's just to try and keep that Squig Herd out of combat a little while longer. And that's what that looks like. The Steam Tank does its random movement. And I think actually in this one I don't have any steam points. I think that this is turn 2 Orcs, and Anthony charged the Savage Orcs into the Steam Tank. probably because there wasn't any room to do anything else. The Squig Hopper unit charges the Inner Circle Knights, and the other Squig Hoppers are coming around the hill. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how that went down. Use a better angle of it. The Inner Circle Knights take 2 casualties and thoroughly abuse the Squig Hoppers. Up until this point, I kind of just assumed that they were a special, unique unit and didn't follow any rules, but at this point we realized that the Squig Hoppers are cavalry, so since the mounts can't make supporting attacks, that's a significant reduction in their effectiveness, at least as far as we were using. We were just assuming that every single model in 2 ranks was going to get to contribute all its attacks, because I didn't look at his army book, I just assumed it was a unique unit. Squig Hoppers are actually counted as cavalry, which means only the front rank of Squigs will get to attack. Now, it does move in a weird way, and you can rank them up, wide, I suppose. But still, it's a minor reduction in how effective I thought they were, and I was kind of surprised, just because I'm just used to Squigs being very nasty and chewing through my units, especially with Strength 5 attacks. Here's another shot of this. The Savages do no wounds to the steam tank. And that's pretty much the entire rest of the game for them. I mean, anybody can see the trade that I'm making there. It's a 250-point steam tank versus 700-something, maybe 800 points of Savages. I mean, it's just divide and conquer, but it's impressive just how durable it is against anything other than probably Strength 6 or higher attacks. I mean, the Savages were Strength 5 on turn 1. They didn't get a single wound through. The one forest that my Greatsword is in, is it a Spore Forest? It's the one that makes Goblins stubborn. That actually doesn't become an issue in the game, but it could have been. Nobody ever failed a stupidity check from it, and no Goblins ever passed a check they wouldn't have because they were stubborn. But it was cool to see, Orcs and Goblins, forests with a specific rule to affect them. I mean, that made me feel like we were playing pretty, like the mysterious terrain wasn't completely retarded. Now on my turn, I generate 3 steam points on the tank, and I'm just going to use that on the breath weapon most likely because grinding doesn't contribute to combat res because it happens in the movement phase. The engineer makes it up to the Hellblaster volley gun, and I swift reform my swordsman to just try to pull everything over towards that combat with the Savages. I really don't know what I was thinking. I think I was just really afraid of charging headlong into the Squigs. And that's not an unwise fear. I think I just really overdid it because now I've turned my flank on the Squigs and they're going to just chew them up. I'm going to have even more attacks coming at me because I'm wider on the flank than I am on the front. I don't really know. I think if I remember correctly, Anthony was talking about how he had fanatics in the Night Goblin unit, and he didn't, but it's a good point. In a tournament, he would, so I should start thinking like every Night Goblin unit's getting ready to chuck fanatics at me. And Strength 5 armor-piercing hits from the fanatic that's going to kill some knights. But I should have just left the Savages alone. They're stuck on the tank. The Shaman can't do anything because he's in close combat, and that's really I have the Greatswords there for support. I should have just either done a double charge, Greatswords and the Knights. The Knights are almost guaranteed with their movement and with the Steel Standard, and the Greatswords it wouldn't have been that bad. And yes, it would have exploded. Yes, it would have taken severe casualties on both units, but with him having to split his attacks between the 2 units, it probably would have gone down better, as you'll see in the next couple of slides. The Knights pretty much bounce off the Savages. 5-up ward save might as well be 2-up ward save the way Anthony rolls it, but it's disheartening. Here you can see what this combat looks like, and this is with +1 to hit from the Hurricanum, and this is with Hatred and all that. So here's another shot of what's going on this side of the table. The Demogryphs are coming all the way back around that piece of terrain. And the Black Orcs, and like if they charge the Pistoliers, they're not going to get them. I think Anthony knows that. I think I shot and killed them with I shot and killed his Wolf Riders, or panicked them or something. Either way, they're gone. I'm going to assume that the Pistoliers did it. Here you can see that Anthony's, did a few casualties to the Savages, but they reformed to face the Knights to bring ranks to bear, so I'm not stuck in his side. I think that he's no longer frenzied as a result of that charge, and I have the 5-up ward save on the Knights. However, during Anthony's turn, he of course charges the horde of squig herders into my flank, and then in the magic phase, he gets off sneaky stabbing or whatever it is, the one that if the unit is engaged on the flank, it rerolls all to hit and to win. So he's weapon skill 4 on weapon skill 4, hitting on 4s with a reroll. He's strength 5 on toughness 3, so he's wounding on 2s with a reroll. He goes through those knights like a hot knife through butter. And you can see the rest of the board looks like so. The black orcs move up, they don't charge. Everyone else is getting in position. And that's what the unit of knights looks like after the sways go through. I mean, I'm not kidding. That was so demoralizing. They gain armor piercing from the spell's effect in the first place, which is never good. I mean, even though they're strength 5, so it's with armor piercing, my 1-up save is going to a 4-up save, and he's re-rolling all his failed wounds, so he's basically every single attack that hits is going to wound. Oi. So I'm already feeling kind of dumb for charging into the Savages, which are stuck on an unbreakable unit. Now I feel really dumb because he just went to town on my knights. I turned my flank to a goblin army that has a spell specifically to capitalize on flanks. Wow, I don't know if you can make any more poor of a decision, but okay, that's what it is. That's the command models left and the warrior priest. Here you go. You see the squig hoppers came around to threaten the steam tank, I guess. I don't know. I think Anthony probably should have just ignored it, but he was hoping to grind it down through sheer volume of attacks, I guess, and free up the Savages. Here you go. Empire turn 3. Demigryphs are coming back around for a rigor charge on the Black Orcs. Pistoliers are going to pepper his command unit, try and get some wounds in. I think his shaman had injured himself on magic mushrooms. I take the great swords into the squigs, but it's... if only I had done it a little earlier. Oh well. Here you can see the hurricanes up there to support both of those units. The great swords are, they're gonna go into the squigs pretty hard, but again they're gonna take severe casualties because the squigs are gonna strike first, and the strength 5, and I only have a 4-up armor save. The Hellblaster with the engineer actually manages to perform. I get 10 wounds on the Black Orcs, so 5-up armor piercing on Black, or strength 5 armor piercing on the Black Orcs is just dead models. Anthony picks up a whole rank. I have never gotten to use the Hellblaster in a way that made me feel it was effective before this point. So now I basically assume that the engineer is mandatory. If I'm going to try to use the Hellblaster, then I'm going to need to have an engineer there. It's just mandatory. The unit should just cost 200 points instead of 120 points for the Hellblaster because it's never going to be as effective without one. It's just too unreliable. 3 steam points again. You can go for more, but it's really just not worth the risk. And I got something off on the Savage Orcs. I don't know what spell it was, but it didn't make a big difference in this round of combat. And there you have it. I got re-rolling to wound, failed rolls to wound on the Warrior Priest's buffs. After the squigs went, I'm left with, from that horde of 30-something greatswords, I have 15 models in contact with the squig herd. So I get 16 attacks with the unit champion. Of those 16 attacks, between Hatred, the Hurricanum, and rerolls to wound from the Hammer of Sigmar on the Warrior Priest, out of 16 attacks, I wound with 15 of them. I mean, I'm really loving this combination of units, but that kind of consistency, I love it. That makes me feel like I'm doing something right. So that's a ton of squigs. This is a huge multiple combat now. If I won, it was only by like 1 point. I think it might have actually just been a draw because you can see how many I had to pick up a ton of greatswords, and Anthony had to pick up a ton of models as well. But I want to say that at the end of the day, it was just a push. Either that, or like I'm stubborn in both the knight unit and the greatswords. Anthony's steadfast in both of his units, so it doesn't really matter. Either way, nothing happened with regards to units breaking or fleeing from combat. The Black Orcs charge into the exposed corner of that horde of greatswords. I guess I could have combat reformed. It probably wouldn't have made a huge difference because I can't take models out of base contact, and the wizard is now going to get beat on by a bunch of Black Orcs. Squig hoppers charging to the steam tank. This actually is probably the point where I was starting to feel like the game had not gone my way. He's getting wounds in on the steam tank now, so the steam tank is going to be less reliable. The squigs do even more damage to the greatswords unit, and I managed to make a couple ward saves on the wizard, and he clings to life with just one wound. Lose combat. Everybody's stubborn. High leadership because the general's there. The knight's unit is completely eliminated. All that's left is the warrior priest. And that's that. He gets off the itchy movement spell on the demigryph, so they're like movement 2 now and initiative 1. Here's what it looks like on my turn. The swordsmen charge the Black Orcs, and the demigryphs, despite having movement 2, roll like 12 for their charge range. So they make it into the Black Orcs. And I get off 2 of the shadow spells. I want to say the Melkoth Mystifying Miasma to make them like weapon skill 2, and the Withering to make them toughness 3. It's either Withering or the Enfeebling Foe. I had like all the good debuffs. I got off 2 of them on the Black Orcs. The Black Orcs have a rear charge, a full unit of swordsmen in the front, and it's gonna go badly for him. I generate 3 steam points on the steam tank without any incident. In close combat, I direct the Strength 4 breath weapon from the steam tank towards the Squig hoppers. Roll like an 11. He's got 12 in the unit to kill most of them. That's just fantastic. I mean, like up until this point, the steam tank's been doing nothing, just acting as a big roadblock. But for it to suddenly turn around and put out 9 combat res in this turn is critical. The contributions from the demigryphs are substantial. It's a charge. It's a rear. I do a ton of wounds. I do lose more great swords. I do lose more some swordsmen. And my general does die to directed attacks against him, but I break the horde, run them down. This does leave my depleted unit of great swords open to a charge from his general's bunker, but I gotta take them out. That's the game right there. If I can get them into an unfavorable combat, if the great swords can just hold on, they have the 5-up ward save, they have a warrior priest. But he's got a lot of characters in that unit, and Goblin characters are not really slouches in combat, especially against toughness 3 models. Here you can see they do make the charge. And if I remember correctly, I do have the 5-up ward save cooking from earlier. The Hurricane might have actually panicked and run away. I don't know why it's facing that way. In combat, the warrior priest loses. He does like no wounds. He's got no standard. It's no longer a multi-combat. He breaks from that. The savages can't pursue because they're locked with the steam tank. And I'm thinking, oh, at least I'm saving the points for the hero. But he flees through the fungus forest or whatever, fails his dangerous terrain check, and dies. So that's that warrior priest dead. I mean, it's not a huge deal. He's not that expensive, but at this point, this game's going to come down pretty close. The greatswords do a few wounds to the unit. All of his characters whiff, and I have the ward save, so it's actually kind of a push. I charge the pistoliers into the rear to hopefully hold them up. and the Hurricanum reforms. Everybody else positions for a charge on turn 6. I am not able to get the ward save back up. I do get the Hammer of Sigmar, but that's not really that helpful to me. You can see the Greatsword unit takes additional casualties. It's starting to shrink pretty small now. Here's a closer shot of this. I didn't take a picture of it, but the Pistoliers took casualties and broke from combat, actually. Here you can see what that looks like. This is the last slide, so I'm just going to sum up everything that happened. The Demigryphs charged the rear of the Night Goblin unit after it kills the Greatswords, breaks their attached Warrior Priest, and runs the Warrior Priest down. The Swordsman flank charge, I got one shot, and that's that I basically, kill the entire unit. Even if I do all that, he's still going to be stubborn on his general because he has the Crown of Command, but he is under no obligation to make way to fight me, so I got to kill enough of them so that it brings him into base contact with me. And I don't. I mean, we go to town, the Demigryphs in the rear, everything like that. We both units have the Celestial Hurricanum bonus. And my swordsmen against goblins aren't that outmatched or anything like that, but it's a lot of bodies. I can't do that many wounds with these units. And his general is stubborn, leadership 8 or leadership 9, and with the BSB still alive and all that, they hold, and that's the end of the game. If I had additional rounds, which we didn't due to the turn limit on the match, obviously I would have been able to break that unit. But as it stands, it was a draw, like maybe 150 points in my favor after losing the great swords and all my characters like that. But yeah, no, it was a tough game. I just, especially recording this narration, I can't help but kick myself for all those kind of bad decisions I made. I do encourage you, if you want a better breakdown of exactly what happened, what spells were in effect at what time, to watch the battle report on Anthony's Sustainable Center channel. I'm going to link it. It's he did a very good job of keeping track of spells and effects and all that. I just figured I would record this as as my opinions and what I was thinking in my decisions. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.